Amara enters the boutique, her footsteps soft against the marble floor. Each step distorts her reflection, the polished surface warping her image as if the store itself resists her presence. Security cameras blink overhead, their red lights flickering. Dennis, the security guard, stands near the entrance, arms folded, jaw clenched. He watches Amara with a gaze that weighs her down, suspicion clear in his eyes. The store's luxury sparkles under bright lights, but the atmosphere is thick with something unspoken. Customers glance up as Amara passes, their eyes lingering a moment too long before darting away. A woman whispers to her companion, their voices low, but the message is clear. Amara notices every detail, the way a sales clerk's smile fades when she approaches, the way a mother pulls her child a little closer. She keeps her head high, her expression calm. Refusing to let their doubt touch her dignity, Dennis shifts his stance, tapping his radio against his palm. He doesn't say a word, but his posture is a warning. Amara meets his gaze, unflinching. The tension grows, silent but heavy, as if the whole store is holding its breath. A young employee at the register offers a hesitant smile, but even that feels rehearsed, uncertain. Amara's heart pounds, but her face remains composed. She walks past a display of dresses, the mannequins frozen in perfect poses. For a moment, she sees herself reflected in the glass, fragmented, multiplied, surrounded by luxury but set apart by invisible barriers. Every glance, every whispered comment builds a quiet wall between her and the world she's entering. Amara pauses, steadying herself, then moves forward, determined not to shrink. The store's beauty feels cold, but her resolve is warm and unbreakable. Before the story continues, please let us know from where you are watching this video. Write your city or country in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe and hit like if you believe in stories that challenge injustice. Your engagement gives power to voices that need to be heard. Amara moves deeper into the boutique, her pace measured, each step deliberate. Dennis follows at a distance, his presence unmistakable. He lingers at the end of every aisle, pretending to straighten a display or check a price tag, but his gaze never leaves her. Customers pretend not to notice, but their eyes flicker up, then quickly away. The air is thick with quiet tension, every movement loaded with meaning. Amara feels the scrutiny, but she refuses to let it change her rhythm. She browses a rack of jackets, her fingers steady, her face unreadable. A pair of teenagers giggle near the jewelry counter, glancing her way before whispering behind cupped hands. An older woman clutches her purse a little tighter as Amara passes, her posture stiff. The store's music plays softly, but it can't drown out the unspoken judgment that fills the space. Dennis adjusts his radio, the click sharp in the hush. He exchanges a look with a sales clerk, who offers a small, nervous nod before busying herself with folded shirts. Amara catches the exchange, her jaw tightening for just a second before she smooths her expression. She turns down another aisle, her reflection multiplying in the mirrors. Each version of herself watched, measured, doubted. A young employee stocking shelves offers Amara a brief, genuine smile, but glances nervously at Dennis before returning. To her task, Amara nods in return, grateful for the gesture, however fleeting. The weight of every sidelong glance, every whispered comment, presses in, but she keeps moving, her dignity intact. As Amara pauses to examine a handbag, Dennis edges closer, his footsteps slow and deliberate. The distance between them shrinks, the power dynamic shifting with every step. Amara stands her ground, meeting his gaze head on. The store feels smaller, the walls closer, but Amara's resolve does not waver. Amara pauses outside the fitting rooms, a dress draped over her arm. Dennis steps into her path, blocking the entrance with a calculated move. His eyes narrow, searching her face for any sign of guilt. The space between them shrinks, thick with expectation. Amara keeps her posture straight, refusing to be the first to look away. Dennis finally speaks, his voice low and edged with suspicion. "You need help, or are you just looking?" The words hang in the air, heavy and pointed. Amara studies him for a moment, her expression calm but unwavering. She answers, voice even, "I know exactly what I want." The response is quiet, but it lands with force. A nearby customer glances over, sensing the tension but quickly turning away. The sales clerk at the counter fidgets. Glancing from Dennis to Amara, Unsure whether to intervene, she straightens a stack of receipts, hands trembling just enough to betray her nerves. Another employee lingers by the racks, pretending to organize scarves, but her eyes dart to the standoff. Worry flickering across her face, Dennis shifts his weight, jaw working as if searching for the right words. He doesn't move aside, but the challenge in Amara's eyes unsettles him. For a moment, neither speaks. The quiet is thick, broken only by the distant hum of the store's air conditioning. Amara's grip tightens on the dress, but her voice remains steady. A young girl waiting with her mother watches wide-eyed. Her mother gently pulls her away, whispering something too soft to hear. Amara notices, her heart twisting, but she doesn't let it show. She stands her ground, her dignity. A silent protest against the doubt aimed her way. The moment stretches, the balance of power shifting in the quiet. Dennis finally steps back just enough for Amara to pass. She moves forward, chin lifted, leaving him standing in the shadow of his own uncertainty. Her smile, tight eyes flickering between Dennis and Amara, the air thickens. The usual hum of the store replaced by a heavy stillness. Customers pause, sensing the shift, their conversations dwindling to whispers. Dennis radios for backup, his voice low but urgent, fingers trembling slightly. The manager's gaze sharpens, her posture rigid as she approaches Amara. The tension is palpable, a silent battle of wills. Amara's phone buzzes in her pocket. She glances down, a message from her father. Be there at 10. Her lips curl into a subtle, knowing smiler, quiet storm gathering beneath calm. A sales clerk nearby fidgets, stealing glances at the unfolding scene, her hands wringing a folded receipt. Another employee adjusts a display, eyes darting nervously. The store's polished floors reflect the unease, the luxury now feeling cold. And distant Dennis steps closer to Amara, his shadow looming. She meets his gaze steadily, unshaken. The manager clears her throat, voice clipped. Is there a problem here? Amara's reply is measured, calm, no problem, just shopping. The words hang in the air, a challenge wrapped in restraint. The manager's smile falters, replaced by a tight line. Dennis's grip on his radio loosens. Uncertainty flickering in his eyes, the customers resume their movements. But the atmosphere remains charged, the old order quietly cracking. The scene closes on Amara's steady gaze, the promise of change. Simmering beneath the surface, Amara stands at the center of the boutique, her expression calm, the faintest hint of a smile curling at the corners of her mouth. Dennis and the manager hover nearby, their confidence wavering as the tension lingers. The store feels different now. Every glance, every shuffle of feet, every nervous cough amplifies the weight of the moment. Dennis tries to reclaim authority, clearing his throat and straightening his jacket. We just want to make sure everything's in order, he says, but his voice lacks conviction. The manager nods, her eyes darting to the security cameras, searching for reassurance that doesn't come. A sales clerk stands frozen behind the counter, her hands gripping a stack of shopping bags, knuckles pale. Amara's gaze moves from Dennis to the manager, then to the customers who have begun to gather at a distance, curiosity and discomfort mixing in their eyes. She doesn't raise her voice. Instead, she lets the silence stretch, her composure speaking louder than any accusation. The subtle smile remains, unsettling those who expected fear or anger. A teenage boy near the window whispers to his friend, "She's not even scared." The friend nods, both watching as the old power dynamic quietly unravels. The manager shifts her weight, her shoes squeaking against the floor. Dennis glances at the exit, suddenly unsure of his place. Amara's phone vibrates again, but she doesn't look down. Her presence alone is enough to shift the atmosphere. The store, once a fortress of certainty for some, now feels exposed, vulnerable to the truth simmering just beneath the surface. As Amara turns to continue shopping, the room exhales. The cracks in the old order are visible now, and everyone feels the storm that her quiet smile has promised a reckoning, not of rage, but of dignity and unshakable resolve. Dennis trails Amara through the boutique, his steps measured and deliberate. His routine is well-worn, a silent choreography of suspicion. Flashbacks flicker. Other black teens followed, their faces etched with frustration and fear. White customers pass unchallenged, their presence unquestioned. A clerk whispered, "Again," hangs in the air, a quiet lament that floats between racks of designer clothes. Amara's jaw tightens, but her stride remains steady, her dignity intact. The store's mirrors reflect two truths: her calm resolve and his deep-seated bias. Customers glance sideways, some with curiosity, others with discomfort. The air is thick with unspoken tension, a weight pressing down on every movement and every breath. Dennis adjusts his jacket, his eyes darting nervously. He exchanges a furtive glance with a sales associate, who nods subtly before returning to folding shirts. Amara notices the exchange, a flicker of understanding passing between them. The clerk's hands tremble slightly, betraying the conflict beneath her composed exterior. Amara pauses by a display, her reflection fractured in the glass. She breathes deeply, steadying herself against the invisible walls closing in. Dennis's gaze lingers, a silent accusation that she refuses to acknowledge. The boutique's polished floors gleam, but beneath the surface, the cracks of prejudice run deep. A young employee offers Amara a brief, genuine smile, a small act of solidarity. Amara returns it with a nod, her strength quiet but unmistakable. The store's atmosphere shifts imperceptibly, the old order beginning to falter under the weight of truth. Each step Amara takes is a quiet challenge to the pattern that is gone. Unchecked for too long, Dennis's hand clamps down on Amara's backpack as she moves toward the exit. The sudden pressure makes her breath hitch, a sharp intake she quickly swallows. Around them, the usual store buzz falters. Customers freeze mid-step, eyes wide and uncertain. The air thickens, every conversation dying in their throats. Samuel's voice cuts through the tension, low but firm. "Remove your hand." Dennis's face drains of color, the weight of the moment crashing down on him. His grip loosens, fingers trembling as he steps back, the realization of his mistakes settling like a stone in his chest. The manager's forced smile falters, a crack. Appearing in her carefully maintained facade, staff members exchange uneasy glances, whispers rising like a tide, ready to break. Amara stands tall, her eyes steady, unyielding. The backpack, once a target, now a symbol of the line crossed. A sales clerk nearby fidgets, her hands wringing a folded receipt, eyes darting between Dennis and Amara. Another employee lingers by the racks, pretending to straighten scarves, but unable to hide the worry etched on her face. Dennis's shoulders slump, the confident posture replaced by a slump of defeat. He avoids Amara's gaze, staring instead at the polished floor, the reflection of his own failure staring back at him. The store's luxury feels colder, the air heavier, charged with the unspoken acknowledgement of injustice. Outside, the city moves on, unaware of the quiet reckoning unfolding within these walls. But inside, the dam has begun to crack, the first fissures of change appearing in the silence that follows. Samuel enters the boutique, his stride calm but commanding. The room seems to realign as he steps in, every pair of eyes drawn to him. He's dressed sharply, but it's not the suit that commands respect. It's the certainty in his gaze. Dennis stiffens, his earlier bravado replaced by a flicker of doubt. Samuel's eyes lock on Dennis, a silent confrontation that needs no words. Flashbacks ripple through Samuel's mind. Years ago, he was the one mopping these floors, his name barely remembered by managers who never saw him. Now, he stands as the owner, undeniable. The staff shifts uneasily, old loyalties fracturing in the new light. Some look away, others straighten their posture, uncertain where to stand. Amara stands a little taller, her father's presence a shield she never had. To ask for Samuel's voice is quiet, but it carries. "Is there a reason my daughter was stopped?" The question lands heavy, the authority in it impossible to ignore. Dennis tries to find his footing, but the ground has shifted beneath him. He stammers, searching for an explanation that won't come. The manager steps forward, her smile brittle, hands clasped tightly in front of her. We thought there was a misunderstanding." Samuel's gaze doesn't leave Dennis. A repeated misunderstanding is a pattern. The words hang in the air, undeniable and final. A young sales associate, Marco, glances at Amara, then at Samuel, his expression a mix of relief and admiration. The staff's uncertainty grows, the old order unraveling thread by thread. Amara's eyes meet her father's gratitude and pride mingling in the quiet. Samuel's presence changes everything. The power dynamic has shifted, and everyone in the room feels it. Dennis steps back. The authority he once wielded now, a memory fading fast. The boutique's back office glows with the harsh light of a computer monitor. The security footage plays on Luke Dennis shadowing Amara. The backpack grab, Samuel's arrival. The images are stark, every movement captured in crisp monochrome. The staff gathers, some standing, others perched on the edge of chairs. All eyes fixed on the screen. Dennis stands apart, arms crossed, jaw clenched. He watches himself on the footage, the reality of his actions undeniable. Each replay chips away at his confidence, the certainty he once felt replaced by a creeping sense of dread. The manager sits rigid, her fingers drumming nervously on a stack of unopened mail. A sales associate shifts in her seat, arms folded tight, her face pale. Outside the office, the store's atmosphere has changed. Customers whisper, glancing toward. The office door, the boutique's pristine image splinters as word spreads, a quiet storm gathering force. Social media erupts as the leaked footage finds its way online. Comments flood in. "This happened to me here. Not surprised. Time for change." Samuel stands behind the staff, arms folded, watching the footage with a calm intensity. He doesn't speak, but his presence is a reminder that the truth can't be ignored. Amara sits beside him, her face composed, eyes never leaving the screen. The staff's discomfort grows, the room heavy with the weight of exposure. Dennis shifts, his stance, unable to look away from his own reflection on the monitor. The store's luxury, once a shield, now feels like a spotlight. The video loops again, the truth replayed for all to see. The old excuses no longer hold. The boutique's reputation fractures, the cracks spreading outward with every share, every comment, every silent realization. The boutique's online reputation unravels overnight. One-star reviews pour in, each one a small act of reckoning. Racist staff, reads one. "Never shopping here again," says another. The manager sits at her desk, refreshing the Yelp page, hands trembling as the ratings plummet. Her phone buzzes with notifications, each alert a reminder that the story has escaped the store's walls. Samuel enters the office, a letter in hand. He reads aloud from a former employee, "They called me aggressive for asking questions." The words sting, echoing in the cramped space. The staff listens in silence, some shifting uncomfortably, others staring at the floor. The past and present collide with every new review, every shared experience. A sales associate, Marco, glances at his phone, scrolling through the comments. He looks up, his voice quiet but clear. "They're right. We all saw it." The admission hangs in the air, heavier than any accusation. The manager tries to compose a response, her fingers hovering over the keyboard, but the words won't come. The usual excuses feel empty, powerless against the tidal wave of truth. Amara stands by the window, watching as customers pass by without entering. The boutique's luxury is no longer a draw. It's a barrier, a symbol of exclusion. Dennis lingers. In the hallway, listening to the murmurs, the weight of collective judgment pressing in. The staff's unity fractures, old alliances dissolving in the face of public scrutiny. Outside, the city moves on, but inside the boutique, the atmosphere is charged with a new awareness. The avalanche of reviews is more than a demand for accountability, a call for change that can't be ignored or erased. In the quiet of the break room, a young clerk sits across from Amara, her hands twisting a napkin into knots. The hum of the vending machine fills the space, but the tension is heavier than the silence. She glances at the door, then leans in, voice barely above a whisper. "I wanted to stop him, but I didn't. I just froze." Amara listens, her expression gentle, giving the clerk space to speak. The confession comes in fragments: regret, fear, shame. He's done it before. "I told myself it wasn't my place. I thought if I kept my head down, it would pass." Her eyes well up, but she blinks the tears away, determined to finish. "I stayed silent too long." Amara reaches into her bag and hands the clerk a folded flyer. "We're organizing. You can help now." The clerk takes it, her hands shaking, but there's relief in her eyes, a chance to do something right. She stands and pins the flyer to the break room bulletin board, her gesture small but defiant. Other employees notice. One nods in support, Another lingers by the coffee pot, reading the flyer with new interest. The walls of the break room, once covered in generic motivational posters, now hold the first signs of real change. The secrets that once seeped through, these walls are being replaced by voices, hesitant but growing stronger. The clerk returns to her seat, a little straighter than before. Amara offers a quiet smile, acknowledging the courage it takes to speak up. The break room feels different, less like a hiding place, more like the beginning of something honest. Outside, the store carries on, but inside, the truth has started to find its voice. Amara sits on a bench outside the boutique, phone in hand. Her fingers hover over the screen before she types. This isn't new. #ShoppingWhileBlack. She hits send. Within minutes, notifications flood in. Stories pour out teens from across the city, sharing moments of being watched, followed, doubted. Each post adds weight, each reply a piece of a much larger truth. Inside, Samuel watches a local news segment play on the break room TV. The anchor's voice is steady. A viral hashtag is sparking conversation about discrimination. In retail, Samuel's face is unreadable pride and sorrow mingling behind his eyes. Dennis's name flashes on the screen, his image blurred but unmistakable. In a nearby apartment, his neighbor sees the segment and shakes her head, muttering about time. At the boutique, employees gather around their phones, reading the posts aloud. Marco scrolls through the feed, his voice cracking as he reads. "I was accused of stealing a belt when I was 12. Kiara responds, "You're not alone." The staff, once divided, now feels the current pulling them together. The store's group chat lights up some messages, defensive, others apologetic, a few simply silent. Dennis stands outside. Watching customers pass by, their faces illuminated by phone screens. He hears snippets. "Did you see that video? It's everywhere." His shoulders tense, the weight of exposure settling in. The boutique's windows reflect the shifting world, one where the old rules no longer hold. Amara's tweet keeps spreading, the hashtag trending citywide. She watches the numbers climb, her heart pounding not with fear, but with hope. For the first time, she feels the power of being seen, her experience echoed and amplified by thousands. The digital storm outside the boutique is impossible to ignore, and inside. The staff knows nothing will ever be the same. The manager stands at the front of the boutique, a prepared statement clutched in her hands. Her voice is flat, rehearsed, as she reads, "We regret any misunderstandings. Mistakes were made." The words echo, hollow, and unsatisfying. Employees gather nearby, arms crossed or hands in pockets, their faces a mix of skepticism and fatigue. Stands off to the side, listening with a frown. He steps forward, taking the paper from the manager's hands. "Accountability, not excuses," he says quietly, but everyone hears it. The manager's cheeks flush, her grip loosening as Samuel edits the statement with a pen, crossing out lines, adding his own. The staff watches, some nodding in relief, others unsure if anything will really change. A stack of new training pamphlets sits on the counter. The words diversity and inclusion stamped in bold. Marco flips through one, brow furrowed. "This is just paper," he mutters. Kiara glances at him, her expression resigned. "It's a start," she replies. Dennis lingers near the back, avoiding everyone's eyes. His coffee untouched and cold, customers trickle in, their footsteps hesitant. Some glance at the pamphlets, others at the staff, searching for signs of sincerity. The store's usual energy is gone, replaced by an uneasy quiet outside. The protest chalk has faded, but the memory of it lingers in every cautious interaction. The apology, meant to close the wound, leaves it raw and exposed. Employees return to their tasks, but the old routine is broken. The promise of change hangs in the air, fragile and uncertain. The boutique's doors stay open, but fewer people cross the threshold. The community is watching, waiting for something real. Outside the boutique, a group of teenagers crouch on the sidewalk, colored chalk dusting their hands. They scrawl bold letters, "Stop profiling us." Across the concrete, their voices rise and fall, sometimes chanting, sometimes laughing nervously. Amara joins them, her presence quiet but steady. She kneels, adding her own words to the growing mural, her handwriting looping beside theirs, dot inside. Samuel stands at the window, watching the scene unfold. Pride flickers in his eyes, tempered by a shadow of regret. He remembers his own youth protests that faded without change. Now, he sees his daughter at the center of a new movement, her resolve unshaken. Dennis peers through a gap in the blinds, jaw clenched. The chants seep through the glass, a constant reminder that the world outside is watching. He turns away, pacing the back hallway, the sound of his footsteps restless and uncertain. The manager stands by the door, arms folded, her face unreadable as she watches the crowd swell. A sales associate steps outside, offering bottled water to the protesters. One teen accepts with a grateful nod, then hands her a piece of chalk. She hesitates, then writes a single word, "Listen," on the pavement. The act draws cheers. A small bridge built between the store and the street as the afternoon sun dips lower. The chalk mural stretches along the sidewalk, a tapestry of frustration and hope. Passersby pause to read the messages, some snapping. Photos, others joining in. The boutique's polished windows reflect the colors and the crowd. The old order mirrored in the glass, but no longer untouched dot inside. The staff gathers near the entrance, watching the protesters, their faces thoughtful. The line between inside and outside blurs, the call for justice impossible to ignore. The store, once a fortress, now feels exposed, its future uncertain, but its walls finally letting in the truth. Dennis sits alone in the cramped office. The hum of the overhead light, the only sound. A blank sheet of paper rests before him, pen poised but unmoving. He stares at the page, memories flickering his father's voice from years ago. "Keep them in line, son. That's your job." The words echo, hollow now, stripped of certainty. He begins to write the pen, trembling in his grip. To management, the words come slowly, each line heavier than the last. "I can't continue in this position. My actions have caused pain, and I see that now." He pauses, swallowing hard, the weight of regret settling in his chest. Outside the door, the muffled sounds of the store drift in voices. Laughter, the scrape of a chair, life moves on, indifferent to his reckoning. He crumples the first draft, tossing it toward the trash. The bin is already full of other attempts, other confessions, none quite right. He tries again, this time the words more honest, stripped of excuses. "I failed to see people. I failed to listen." The admission stings, but he forces himself to finish. The manager finds the letter later, smoothing its creased edges. She reads it in silence, her face unreadable. She tucks it into a folder, not sure what to do with it, but she doesn't throw it away. The trash can overflows with similar notes of Isis's cracking. The old ways no longer defensible. Dennis lingers at his desk, staring at the empty chair across from him. He feels the loss of authority, of certainty, of the person he thought he was. The office feels colder, the walls closer. He stands, leaving the letter behind. A small act of surrender in a world that's already moved on. Jamal steps into the boutique for his first shift, adjusting his new uniform with nervous hands. The fabric is stiff, the namatag shiny and unfamiliar. He greets each staff member with a quiet good morning, his voice steady despite the weight of expectation. Marco offers a fist bump. Kiara flashes a supportive grin. The atmosphere is different, watchful, but not hostile. Dennis lingers near the stockroom, avoiding Jamal's gaze. He busies himself with inventory, stacking boxes that don't need moving. Jamal approaches, offering a simple "need any help?" Dennis shakes his head, mumbling, "I've got it." The exchange is brief, but the shift is unmistakable. Jamal's presence is not a challenge, but a quiet assertion of belonging. Customers enter, some doing a double take when they see Jamal behind the counter. An older woman hesitates, then asks for help finding a gift. Jamal assists her, his manner polite and patient. She leaves with a smile, her doubts eased by his professionalism. Narco watches the interaction, nodding in approval. "You're a natural," he says. Jamal shrugs, a small smile breaking through. The staff roster on the break room wall now shows a spectrum of faces, the old homogeneity gone. Kiara updates the schedule, her handwriting looping across the page. The group chat buzzes with welcome messages and new energy infusing the team. The boutique's culture, once rigid and exclusive, is shifting in Everin, but deliberate. Amara stops by after school, catching Jamal's eye. "Looks good on you," she says, nodding at his uniform. Jamal grins, pride and relief mingling in his expression. Dennis watches from a distance, the old orders slipping further away with every interaction. The boutique feels lighter, the air charged with possibility. Jamal's first day is more than a shift change, it's a signal that the walls are coming. Down one uniform at a time, Dennis walks the mall's wide corridors, fluorescent lights glaring overhead. He keeps to the edges, passing shuttered storefronts, his radio silent at his hip. Groups of teens black, white, brown move past him, laughter echoing. Not one meets his gaze. His badge feels heavier than ever, the shine worn off by time. And regret, he checks his phone, scrolling through headlines. Boutique thrives under new leadership. His name is nowhere to be found. A black teen with headphones glides by, humming a tune. Dennis tenses, old instincts flaring, but the boy never even glances his way. Dennis's hand drops from his radio, a gesture he doesn't finish. At the food court, he orders coffee. The cashier doesn't look up, her voice flat. "Cream?" she asks, already moving to the next order. He sits at a table alone, scrolling through the boutique's Instagram feed. Photo after photo, Amara leading a staff meeting, Samuel shaking hands with the mayor, a ribbon cutting with new hires. A comment catches his eye finally, a store that sees us. His thumb lingers over the like button, but he swipes away instead. Nearby, two mall guards share a joke. Their backs turned, heard about the Lewis girl. One asks, "Legend?" The other replies. Dennis crumples his coffee cup, the sound sharp in the empty space. He stands, feeling smaller than ever. At home, his uniform hangs from a hook on the door, baggy and out of place. He sits at his desk, deleting old emails. Incident report, Amara Lewis, the store's logo glaring from the screen. His dog noses his hand, seeking comfort. "Not now," Dennis mutters, staring at the trash can filled with crumpled resumes. The world has moved on, and he's left with the echo of everything he lost. The store's lobby is alive with the hum of anticipation, tripods and cameras crowding every corner of the marble floor. Reporters gather in tight clusters, microphones poised, eyes fixed on the podium. Samuel stands near the front, adjusting his tie with deliberate calm. Amara is beside him, her posture unyielding, her gaze steady and unafraid. The usual background. Chatter is replaced by a heavy, expectant quiet, as if everyone senses the weight of what's about to unfold. Dennis hovers near the exit, fists clenched at his sides, jaw set. He is a shadow at the room's edge, watching the proceedings with a mix of regret and apprehension. The manager stands at the podium, her suit immaculate, but the store's logo behind her looks faded in the harsh light exposed, stripped of its former luster. Staff members line the back wall, some with hopeful expressions, others tense, all aware that this moment will be remembered. A reporter in a blue blazer leans forward, her microphone trembling just slightly. She glances at Samuel, then at Amara, her voice soft but clear as she prepares to ask the first question. Cameras flash, the light bouncing off polished surfaces, capturing every nervous glance and every determined stare. Amara's eyes meet Samuel's for a brief moment, a silent exchange of resolve and reassurance. Dennis shifts his weight, the pressure of the moment pressing down on him. He watches as Samuel takes a measured breath, scanning the crowd before stepping forward. The staff exchange glances, some clasping their hands, others fidgeting with notepads. The sense of reckoning is unmistakable, the air charged with the promise of change. As the press conference begins, every eye in the room is drawn to the podium. The cameras and microphones are more than just equipment. They are witnesses to a turning point, capturing the tension, the hope, and the fear that hangs in the air. A hush settles over the lobby as a reporter steps forward, microphone extended. Her voice is careful, almost gentle. "Mr. Lewis, some say this was just a misunderstanding. What do you say to that?" The question hangs in the air, heavier than it sounds. Samuel's jaw tightens, but he doesn't rush. He glances at Amara, then out at the crowd of reporters, staff, and onlookers. Samuel's reply is measured, each word deliberate. A misunderstanding repeated over and over isn't a mistake, it's a pattern. The room absorbs his words, the truth landing with a quiet force. Dennis, standing near the exit, shifts uncomfortably, his eyes darting to the floor. Amara remains still, her silence more powerful than any outburst. The manager's hands tremble as she adjusts her notes at the podium. A staff member in the back lets out a shaky breath, clutching a notebook to her chest. Another employee, Marco, nods slowly, recognition flickering in his eyes. The other reporters exchange glances, scribbling in their pads, the tone of the conference. Shifting from routine to reckoning, Dennis catches the eyes of a fellow guard, who offers a brief, uncertain nod before looking away. The weight of Samuel's words presses into every corner of the room. Amara's gaze never wavers, her presence a silent challenge to anyone still clinging to excuses. A camera flash captures Samuel's face, resolute and unyielding. The reporter lowers her microphone, satisfied she's gotten the real answer. The staff behind the podium stands a little straighter, but the tension in the air doesn't ease. The question has been answered, but the unease remains. Everyone knows this is only the beginning. Dennis stands at the edge of the press conference, his face pale, hands clenched at his sides. The question isn't aimed at him, but the weight of the moment presses down. His voice cracks unexpectedly, breaking the hush. "I thought I was protecting the store," he blurts, words tumbling out before he can stop them. His eyes dart nervously, from Samuel to Amara, then to the sea of reporters and staff. The room holds its breath. The air charged with the shock of his admission, Samuel's jaw tightens, his gaze unwavering, every line in his face carved with disappointment and resolve. Amara's eyes remain steady, unblinking, her silence more powerful than any accusation. A staff member's pen slips from her fingers, clattering to the floor sharp. Jarring sound that slices through the tension. Dennis's hands tremble, his uniform suddenly too tight, the air stifling. The manager shifts her stance, her practiced smile fading into a thin, uncertain line. The cameras zoom in, capturing every flicker of doubt and fear on Dennis's face. He swallows hard, voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't mean to. I just wanted to keep things safe." His words falter, the mask slipping, the certainty gone. Samuel steps forward, voice calm but unyielding. "Safety that excludes is not safety at all." The words land with a finality that leaves no room for argument. Reporters scribble furiously, the moment of reckoning immortalized in ink and memory. The staff exchanges glances, some nod in relief, others look away, ashamed, outside. The crowd's presence is felt even through the glass. The store's polished floors reflect the shifting dynamic inside a place once ruled by fear and habit. Now teetering on the edge of change, Dennis lowers his gaze, the weight of truth settling on his shoulders. The cameras continue to roll, bearing witness to a confession that cannot be taken back. Dennis stands stiff near the exit, his face pale, hands clenched. The reporter turns to Amara, microphone extended, waiting. She shakes her head slowly, refusing the spotlight. Her silence fills the room, louder than any words. The crowd leans in, sensing the weight of what's left unsaid. Samuel's eyes meet Amara's briefly, a silent exchange of strength and resolve. The staff behind the podium shifts, some nodding, others biting their lips. Dennis's gaze drops to the polished floor, his reflection distorted in the marble. A camera zooms in on Amara's calm face, her posture steady, unyielding. The reporter lowers the mic, the moment hanging heavy. The room breathes in the quiet tension, the unspoken truth settling like dust. The manager adjusts her notes, her hands trembling slightly. She glances at Dennis, whose shoulders slump, the last threads of confidence unraveling. The staff exchange glances, the old order quietly crumbling. Outside, the murmurs of the crowd seep through the glass, a distant echo of change. Amara steps back, her presence a quiet declaration. The microphones and cameras capture the stillness, a powerful statement without a single word spoken. The scene fades with the lingering image of Amara's steady gaze. The silence a force that shifts the balance of power, leaving Dennis exposed and the store forever changed. The manager stands at the front of the boutique, a prepared statement clutched in her hands. Her voice is flat, rehearsed as she reads, "We regret any misunderstandings. Mistakes were made." The words echo, hollow and unsatisfying. Employees gather nearby, arms crossed or hands in pockets, Their faces a mix of skepticism and fatigue. Samuel stands off to the side, listening with a frown. He steps forward, taking the paper from the manager's hands. "Accountability, not excuses," he says quietly, but everyone hears it. The manager's cheeks flush, her grip loosens as Samuel edits the statement with a pen, crossing out lines, adding his own. The staff watches, some nodding in relief, others unsure if anything will really change. A stack of new training pamphlets sits on the counter, the words diversity and inclusion stamped in bold. Marco flips through one, brow furrowed. "This is just paper," he mutters. Kiara glances at him, her expression resigned. "It's a start," she replies. Dennis lingers near the back, avoiding everyone's eyes, his coffee untouched and cold. Customers trickle in, their footsteps hesitant. Some glance at the pamphlets, others at the staff, searching for signs of sincerity. The store's usual energy is gone, replaced by an uneasy quiet. Outside, the protest chalk is faded, but the memory of it lingers in every cautious interaction. The apology, meant to close the wound, leaves it raw and exposed. Employees return to their tasks, but the old routine is broken. The promise of change hangs in the air, fragile and uncertain. The boutique's doors stay open, but fewer people cross the threshold. The community is watching, waiting for something real. The atmosphere is thick with unspoken questions. Staff members exchange glances, some hopeful, others burdened by doubt. The weight of past mistakes hangs heavily, a shadow that refuses to lift. Outside, the city moves on, but inside the boutique, time seems to slow. Each moment stretched by anticipation, a young employee hesitates before speaking, her voice barely audible. "Will this really change things?" she asks, eyes searching for reassurance. Samuel meets her gaze, nodding slowly. "It has too," he replies, his tone firm but gentle. Outside the boutique, a crowd gathers, their voices rising in rhythmic, chants that pulse through the glass storefront. "No justice, no business," echoes along the sidewalk, the words a steady drumbeat of demand. Protest signs wave above heads, some homemade, others printed, all bold. Amara stands at the window, her reflection layered over the faces in the crowd. Her eyes searching for Jamal Dodd. Samuel glances out from the lobby, recognizing neighbors, former customers, and even a few old friends among the protesters. His heart aches with pride and regret, knowing the pain that brought them here. Inside, staff gather near the entrance, some peering out nervously, others drawn by a sense of solidarity. Kiara presses her palm to the glass, a silent gesture of support to those outside. Dennis hovers in the background, shrinking from the noise. The chants seep into the boutique, impossible to ignore. He paces the back hallway, shoulders tense, every shout a reminder of the consequences he can no longer escape. The manager stands by the door, her arms folded tightly, watching the crowd with a face that betrays nothing. A sales associate steps outside, offering bottled water to protesters. A teen accepts, handing her a marker in return. She hesitates, then writes "Listen" on a blank sign, holding it up for all to see. The act draws cheers, a bridge built between the store and the street dot. As the sun sets, the protest grows. Chalk messages bloom on the pavement, colors bright against the gray. The boutique's windows reflect not just the crowd, but the shift in the era reckoning that can't be shut out. Inside, the staff watches, the line between them and the protesters growing thinner with every chant, every shared glance, every shared glance. Dennis stands at the edge of the manager's office, shoulders hunched, a letter trembling in his hand. The manager gestures for him to sit, her expression unreadable. He slides the envelope across the counter, his fingers barely brushing the polished surface. She opens it, eyes scanning the lines, his handwriting uneven, the words heavy. "I accept responsibility for my actions. I understand the harm I've caused. I am stepping down, effective immediately." The staff gathers in the hallway, their voices hushed. Marco leans against the wall, arms folded, watching Dennis with a mix of relief and uncertainty. Kiara glances at the letter, then at Dennis, her face softening for a moment before she turns away. The manager places his badge beside the letter, its shine dulled, the symbol of authority now, just another object on the desk. Dennis's hands hover over the counter, unsure of what to do next. The manager clears her throat, her voice steady, but distant. "You can collect your things." He nods, the gesture small, defeated. As he leaves, the staff parts silently, some offering brief nods, others avoiding his gaze. The hallway feels longer than before, the walk to the exit stretching. With every step, Amara stands at the end of the corridor, watching. Her expression is unreadable, but her presence is undeniable, a reminder of what's changed and what can never return to how it was. Dennis pauses, meeting her eyes for a fleeting moment, then lowers his gaze and continues out the door. The sound of the door closing behind him is final, a chapter ending not with anger, but with the quiet certainty of consequence. The staff exhales, the tension easing just a fraction. The badge and letter remain on the counter. Silent witnesses to a reckoning that was long overdue, Amara's words from the press. "Conference, you were protecting an idea that doesn't include people like me," are clipped and shared across social media. The video, just 20 seconds long, spreads with astonishing speed. Teens repost it with their own stories, each caption a new verse in a growing chorus. "This happened to me. I felt invisible too." "Not anymore." Samuel watches the clip from his office, the screen casting pale light across his face. He scrolls through comments, some angry, some grateful, all demanding more than apologies. His heart swells with pride for Amara, but guilt lingers at the edges. He knows the cost of change, the pain that comes before healing. At the bus stop, Dennis sees his own blurred image in the video, his face pixelated but unmistakable. A group of students nearby watch the clip on their phones, their laughter sharp, their judgment clear. Dennis turns away, pulling his jacket tighter, wishing he could disappear into the crowd. The world he once knew has shifted, and he can't find his place in it anymore. Inside the boutique, staff members gather around a phone, watching the clip together. Marco shakes his head, voice low. "She said what needed to be said." Kiara nods, her eyes shining with something like hope. The manager listens from her office, the words echoing long after the video ends. The clip becomes a rallying cry, a symbol of what's possible when someone refuses to be silent. The boutique's windows reflect the faces of those watching, some changed, some still uncertain, all part of a story that can't be unwritten. Amara's voice, calm and unwavering, continues to ripple outward, reaching places she never imagined. The boutique's atmosphere shifts as two clerks quietly hand in their resignation letters. The manager's desk becomes a sea of paperwork, each letter a silent protest against the toxic culture they can no longer endure. Marco watches the growing pile, his expression a mix of hope and sorrow. Kiara stands nearby, hands clenched, eyes scanning the room. The weight of change presses down but also lifts as the staff begins to reclaim their voices. The manager tries to maintain composure, but her fingers tremble as she sorts through the letters. Samuel moves through the boutique, greeting new hires with a steady smile. The fresh faces bring cautious optimism, unaware of the storm that has passed. The break room buzzes with whispered conversations, plans for a better future, promises to stand together. Dennis's old locker sits empty, a relic of a fading era. The staff's unity grows, the fractures of the past slowly healing. The boutique's windows reflect the shifting light, a symbol of transformation and progress. The scene closes on Marco's thoughtful gaze, the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. The exodus is not an end, but a beginning, a chance to build something new from the ashes of the old. Closing time arrives, and Samuel moves through the boutique, turning off lights one by one. The store feels quieter than ever, the usual hum replaced by a thoughtful hush. Amara walks beside him, her presence calm, her eyes taking in every detail. The protest chalk outside has faded, but faint traces remain, visible only to those who know where to look. Inside. The security cameras still blink, but the sense of surveillance has changed. Staff members gather near the front, sharing tired smiles and soft goodbyes. Kiara locks the register, her movements slow and deliberate. Marco wipes down a display, pausing to glance at the empty staff, board names gone. New ones soon to fill their place. Dennis's shadow crosses the street outside, brief and almost ghostly as he disappears into the night. The staff watches through the glass, a mix of relief and uncertainty in their eyes. The store's windows reflect not just the empty aisles, but the faces of those who remain. Determined to shape what comes next, Samuel stands at the door, keys in hand, looking back at the boutique. Amara touches his arm, a silent reassurance that the struggle was worth it. The lights dim, leaving the store in a gentle twilight. The air is heavy with memory, but also with hope, a sense that something new is possible, even if the path is still unclear. As the last lock clicks into place, the boutique settles into its new normal. Shadows linger, but so does the promise of change. The world outside moves on, but inside, the foundation for a different future has quietly taken root. The boutique's doors glide open, sunlight spilling across the polished floor. A new plaque catches the eye, equity in action, gleaming beside the entrance. Amara enters with friends, their laughter echoing softly. Kiara, a young black employee in a crisp uniform, greets them with a nod and an easy smile. Amara returns the greeting, her gaze sweeping the store. Dennis's old security post is now home to a thriving fern, its leaves catching the light. Samuel stands on the mezzanine watching the scene below. He remembers his early days here, scrubbing the same floors, his name barely acknowledged. Now, Samuel steps down, pausing to straighten Marco's name tag. Their eyes meet, a silent understanding passing between them. The old training manual sits discarded in the trash. Kiara pins up a photo of Amara at the protest, chalk in hand. The clerk who once whispered about Dennis now pours coffee, her hands steady. Outside, faded chalk lines linger on the sidewalk, remnants of old demands, not quite washed away. Amara's phone buzzes with a message from Jamal. "The new cafe hired me. Thanks for believing in change." She smiles, slipping the phone into her pocket. The security cameras blink overhead. The store feels different, lighter, as if the air itself has shifted. Dennis walks the wide corridors of the mall, fluorescent lights buzzing above, casting a cold glow over the empty storefronts. He wears a new uniform, the fabric stiff and unfamiliar, his badge clipped to his belt but feeling heavier than ever. Not one of them glances his way. For years, his presence commanded attention, sometimes fear. Now, he is just another face in the crowd, overlooked and unremarkable. He pauses near a shuttered shop, pretending to check his radio, but there's nothing to report. The mall's security office is quiet, his colleagues barely acknowledging him as they pass. On his break, Dennis sits alone at a corner table, scrolling through his phone. A news headline catches his eye. Boutique rebuilds after reckoning, community praises new leadership. There's a photo of Samuel and Amara smiling, surrounded by new staff. Dennis's name is nowhere to be found. A black teen with headphones walks by, nodding along to music. Dennis's old instincts flare, he almost steps forward, but the boy doesn't even notice him. The moment passes, leaving Dennis with a hollow ache. He buys coffee from a kiosk, the cashier barely looking up. "Sugar?" she asks, already moving to the next order. He takes his cup and sits, watching the steady flow of shoppers, invisible in plain sight. At home, Dennis hangs his uniform on the back of a chair. He sits at his desk, deleting old emails, incident reports, security updates, reminders from the boutique's management. The store's logo flashes on the screen, a reminder of what's been lost. His dog whines, pawing at his leg for attention. Dennis sighs, rubbing the dog's head, grateful for the simple comfort. He glances at a stack of crumpled resumes in the trash, each one a failed attempt to start over. The world has moved on, and Dennis is left behind, a relic of a system that no longer has a place for him. Outside, the mall bustles with life, but Dennis feels smaller than ever, his authority gone, his future uncertain. Amara stands at the front of the boutique's training room, a neatly folded sweater in her hands. Her voice is calm, steady, and every new hire in the room, black, white, Asian, leans in notebooks, open pens poised. "See the person, not the stereotype," she says, her gaze moving from face to face. Marco, still new but eager, underlines the word stereotype twice in his notes, his brow furrowed in concentration. A trainee, voice hesitant, raises a hand. What if they assume the worst? The question hangs in the air, the group tense. Amara meets the trainee's eyes. "Then you prove them wrong," quietly, with patience. Her answer is simple, but it lands with weight. There's a pause. Then Kiara steps forward, demonstrating how to greet customers, her tone warm, her posture open. The trainees practice, some too loud, others too shy, but laughter breaks the tension and the group slowly relaxes. Samuel watches. From the doorway, his eyes shining with pride. For a moment, he remembers Amara at 12, ignored by a clerk in this very store. Now, she stands here teaching others how to see people for who they are. In the stockroom, Samuel finds the old employee conduct guidelines. Dusty, outdated. He tosses it into a box marked Donate. Outside, the protest chalk is gone, but the janitor's mop water still swirls gray, a stubborn reminder of what was. As the session ends, Amara's phone lights up with a message from a teen in another state. Saw your story? Starting a club at my school? Amara smiles, replying, keep going. The trainees file out, energized and hopeful. Marco lingers, adjusting his namatag, then glances at Amara. Thanks, he says quietly. She nods, the smallest smile on her lips. The room empties, but the feeling lingers, a sense that something real has begun. Built not on rules or fear, but on quiet, persistent dignity. Samuel sits at his desk, sunlight filtering through the blinds, and casting long shadows across the room. He flips through a stack of old photographs himself as a teenager, mop in hand, face younger but eyes just as determined. He pauses at a faded picture of his first staff badge, the name barely legible. His fingers linger on the image, tracing the outline with a mix of nostalgia and sorrow. He sets the photos aside and opens the latest staff roster. For the first time, black and brown faces outnumber the rest. Each name represents a story, a chance that was once denied to him and so many others. Samuel's eyes settle on Amara's name, now engraved on a plaque outside her office. He smiles, pride swelling in his chest, but the feeling is bittersweet. He knows the struggle it took to get here. The protests, the sleepless nights, the moments when giving up seemed easier. Outside his office, the faint traces of protest chalk have finally washed away, but the memory of those words, justice, calling for change, remains etched in his mind. His phone buzzes, pulling him back. It's a reminder for the upcoming community forum, a new initiative he started to keep the store accountable. He glances at the agenda. Open discussion, staff feedback, guest speakers from local advocacy groups. As he prepares his notes, Samuel's thoughts drift to the staff. Marco, who found his voice during training, Kiara, who now leads the morning meetings with confidence. Even the clerk, who once stayed silent, now speaks up, her ideas shaping the store's future. Samuel feels the weight of responsibility for what's been built, but also penance for the years he couldn't do more. He stands and looks out the window, watching customers come and go. The boutique is thriving, but Samuel knows the work isn't finished. Change is a process, not a moment, and he's determined to keep moving forward, one honest conversation at a time. The boutique's main floor is transformed for the evening's community forum. In place of the usual displays stands a large chalkboard, its surface clean except for a single line at the top. Share your story. Customers, staff, and neighbors gather, some clutching coffee, others simply watching, unsure if they'll speak. Amara stands near the board, chalk in hand, inviting the first brave voice. A young woman steps forward, her words hesitant. I was followed here once, I never came back. She writes her story in careful script, the chalk squeaking against the board. A ripple moves through the crowd. Recognition, empathy, regret. An older man adds, thank you for listening. I see the change. More hands reach for the chalk, each message different, but connected by the same thread of longing and hope. Samuel watches from the side, arms folded, his expression thoughtful. He makes no move to erase or edit, letting every word stand. Kiara writes, I stayed silent, but not anymore. Marco adds, we're learning together. The board fills with voices, some angry, some grateful, all honest. Outside, Dennis walks past, his pace quickening as he glimpses the crowd through the window. He sees the chalkboard, the faces gathered around it, and feels a pang of something he can't name. He keeps walking, the sound of laughter and conversation fading behind him. Inside, Amara steps back, reading the stories. She finds her own space and writes, change whispers. The phrase lingers, catching the eye of a teenager who nods in agreement. The chalkboard becomes a living document, a space where truth is not just spoken, but seen. As the forum ends, Samuel thanks everyone for coming. No one rushes to erase the board. The stories remain a mosaic of voices and experiences, a testament to what happens when a community chooses to listen instead of turning away. Dennis sits alone at a food court table, the hum of the mall swirling. Around him, but no one choosing to sit nearby, his sandwich sits untouched, the taste gone before it even reaches his mouth. Groups of teens pass, some whispering, others pointing, their laughter sharp and unkind. "That's the guy," one mutters, "the racist guard." The words sting, but Dennis doesn't respond. He hides his badge beneath a napkin, the metal cold and heavy against his palm. His uniform hangs loosely on his frame, the fabric stiff and unfamiliar now that authority has slipped away. At home, Dennis sits at his computer, deleting old emails from the boutique inside and reports. Reminders, security updates the store's logo glaring from the screen, a relic of a life that feels impossibly distant. His dog nudges his hand, seeking comfort, but Dennis can't offer any. He scratches behind the dog's ears absently, his mind elsewhere, replaying moments he wishes he could erase. His world has shrunk to a handful of routines, walking the mall corridors, eating alone, scrolling through news about the boutiques. Transformation. Each headline is a reminder of what he's lost: new faces, new policies, a future he's no longer part of. The authority he once carried is now a ghost, haunting him in the quiet spaces between footsteps. One afternoon, he pauses. By a window overlooking the atrium, a group of black teens laugh together, their joy bright and unburdened. Dennis watches, feeling the ache of regret settle deeper. In the glass, he sees his own reflection, smaller, diminished, a figure fading into the background. He turns away. The mall's fluorescent lights flickering overhead, a quiet reminder that some lights burn out without anyone noticing. Amara leaves the boutique after closing, the city's evening breeze swirling around her as she steps onto the quiet street. The storefront glows behind her, the Equity in Action plaque catching the last light of day. She walks with steady purpose, her shoes tapping a gentle rhythm along the pavement. Each step feels lighter than before, as if the weight she carried for so long has begun to lift. Her mind drifts to the days when entering the store meant bracing herself for suspicion, for glances that questioned her right to belong. She remembers the first time Dennis followed her, the way her heart raced, the way she kept her head high anyway. Now, the memory feels distant, painful, but no longer defining. "They said I didn't belong," she murmurs, her voice barely. Above a whisper, "Now I help decide who does." She passes a cafe where Jamal works, spotting him through the window, laughing with coworkers. He catches her eye and waves, his grin wide and genuine. Amara smiles back, pride warming her chest. The city hums around her, its rhythm changed, the echoes of protest and progress woven into every corner as she nears her building. Amara pauses at a storefront window. Her reflection stares back, older, stronger, unbroken. She sees not just herself, but the faces of those who stood with her. Chiara Marco, her father, the clerk who found her voice. The community they built is fragile, still growing, but real. She breathes in deeply, the air cool and full of promise. Change doesn't roar, she thinks. It builds, quiet and steady, until the walls finally fall. The words linger. In her mind as she heads home, the city's lights flickering on one by one, each a small beacon of hope for what's still to come. Samuel stands at the boutique's entrance, keys in hand, the store bathed in the gentle glow of closing time. He takes a final walk through the aisles, shelves neatly stocked, displays carefully arranged. The Equity in Action plaque catches a slant of moonlight, its letters shining with quiet promise. The air feels different, lighter, cleansed of the old heaviness that once clung to every corner. Inside, Jamal hums softly as he restocks the last shelf, his movements unhurried, content. Chiara finishes counting the register, her face relaxed, the tension of old routines replaced by something steadier. Marco wipes down the glass doors, pausing to look at his reflection, seeing not just himself, but the team he's become a part of. The break room bulletin board is covered with thank you notes, drawings, and the chalkboard message, "Change whispers." The security feed above the office door shows empty aisles, no one to follow, no one to suspect. Dennis's old chair, in the back corner, is gone, replaced by a thriving plant, its leaves reaching toward the light. The staff lockers are filled with new names, the roster a patchwork of backgrounds and stories. Samuel locks the front door, the final click echoing through the quiet store. He lingers a moment, watching the city lights outside, feeling the weight of years finally ease from his shoulders. Amara's words echo in his mind. Change doesn't roar. It builds, quiet and steady, until the walls finally fall. He smiles, knowing the hardest work is still ahead. But the foundation is strong as the boutique settles into darkness. The only light left is the moon's reflection on the plaque and the soft glow of hope that fills the space. Shadows that once haunted the store have been replaced by something gentler, something lasting. The future, unwritten but possible, waits just beyond the glass.